Previously on Andy's Guide.
Unfortunately, I know nothing about goblins.
Tabletop, it's 60%, I think, from 100 odd games. I've got 5 wins in tabletop tournaments. Avoiding a snake away from scoring if you can get it in range.
What do you think about the Doom Diver? Any good?
I barely think it's worth talking about. So it's amazing at dealing with things like Elves and Skaven, where there's lots of blodge everywhere, but it's low armor. You're throwing as many go-for-its and armor rolls and everything you can until it dies.
And now, for part 2.
Right, so that's the initial setups. Then we've got how you would actually then build the team from one of these initial rosters through a bunch of games. We've decided to put in 5 games, 20 games, and then we didn't really put a game limit in. It's just, this is what you could do if they don't die. So after a handful of games, we've called it 5. It doesn't really need to be 5, but it's after a handful of games, this is what your roster might look like. So...
So what we've effectively done here is we've done a little bit more roster building. So we've gone to 3 rerolls. We do eventually want that 3rd reroll. Yep. And we've bought an apothecary. So in what effectively the apothecary allows you to do is drop to 14 players, so you have the spots for the 2 stars. Because my Apo isn't to keep any of the players safe. Maybe in the crazy TV one, we might see, oh, that's a player that's worth using an Apo on. The problem is they'll never get there. They'll die eventually, right? Yeah. So the Apo is there to because on a 9 a stunty is automatically badly hurt. Pretty good chance that your Apo is going to be able to turn something into a reserve that dies. So it's effectively an extra player. And
it's a skill slot for a player. Actually, is what you're paying 10k for an extra skill slot. Is what you're actually doing.
Yeah. So star player slot. Yeah. Exactly. So at this point, you can start to increase that matchmaking TV as well, right? Because you're starting to play more games as well.
Yeah.
I mean, if you watched any of my like old Blood Bowl 2 Chalice runs, you'll see me play stuff like 2000 Chaos, Nurgle, Chaos Dwarves, that kind of thing. I'll probably have 3 Apos in those games just to try and keep the team alive long enough to make it. Because not only have you got to last 16 turns, you've got to last overtime as well now.
Yeah.
And especially in new rules, now that the overtime is a full 8 turns, is it's effectively like giving you like Rioters rookies or something, right?
Yeah. So you put block on the trained troll rather than guard. So are you saying that you would save up for block on both of them, or you go block guard, or do you block?
No, yeah. So
what's the choice here?
So guard is a choice for NAF. Like guard trolls are pretty good. Some people don't like them. I do, because it helps with the cage dives, right? If you're playing elves, then they will 5+ in, and they will power your ball carrier or use wrestle or whatever, and even if you'll play a game where there's 4 elves left and they still manage to bleed and stop you scoring because they can roll a 5+. So having the guard on those corners just makes that like the uphill is way better than the 1 dice, right?
Yeah.
And if you're playing something where it's like a short league and you're not going to get up to enough for a block troll, then I think guard is fine there. But like you will lose games because you troll 1 in 9s.
Yeah, skull both down, right?
Yeah, a skull and a both down, and so the block just makes them so much more reliable from a point of view of, and also what it allows you. So there are cases where I won't throw a block with a troll because I'm scared of it 1 in 9ing and dying and falling over and opening something up. I'll just leave it there because I can't throw the block.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other aspect of it is there's times where I'd like to take the block with the troll quite early in the turn to help with positioning, but I can't risk that until I've done something else. And the block just makes it that little... I mean, yeah, sure, you're still skull, right? But the block just gives it that extra, like, I can do this early because it's quite a lot safer now.
Okay. And so you get more knockdown, right? So it's way better at risk and a little bit more outgoing damage. Okay, so block is your preference.
And if you're playing something like halflings, other stunties, obviously the block then becomes massive.
Sure. Okay. We haven't put any skills on either the Fanatic or the Chain or the Looney, so I guess we'll go past those. But you did then put skills on both the Pogo and the Hooligan.
Yeah, so the Hooligan, I've carried it for a couple of games. It's scored. It's got Sneaky Git. It's finished. That's a perfect player.
It's done.
It's done. And like the Sneaky Git just means your bribes are more like, because I will pretty much before I get the Sneaky Git, I'll pretty much use all of the bribes on the dirty player if I have to. I don't tend to save the bribes for the weapon. Like, it's a bit questionable, but like, if you're on offense first and all your weapons are there, there's no guarantee they're going to stay alive the whole way, right? And having the dirty player fouls is so important for getting those removals, and we'll come on to this a little bit maybe, but you've got to stay on top of attrition. You've got to be at least as many players as the opposition. If you go down players, the game's over pretty much. So the dirty player is such a key piece that I'm going to spend every bribe I can on it. So the Sneaky Git just taking out those send-offs on the armor rolls is really, really nice.
Yeah, well, look, the maths behind it would go from about a 1 in 3 of you getting kicked out, and it goes down to a 1 in 9 of you getting kicked out. Broadly, it does depend on how many assists and what the armor value is, but it's a huge differential, and it's mega strong. So I can see why you're saving up for that. We haven't put any skills. Moving on to the Goblins, we haven't put any skills on those. What would you do with a Goblin that is getting 3 points, 6 points? Like, where would you go with that?
So, I think this is a pretty commonly held opinion, is randoming linemen is the way to go. So a lot of people will random generals. I like guard goblins. It's a 1 in 12, but like I'm pretty happy if they're all rookies. Like I don't think they need skills.
Is there any other skills in here that you would take? Because there's one that sort of stands out to me that I would be interested in. So you're fishing guard. What else is in here that you don't mind?
Nothing. I'm firing everything else.
Nothing. Not even a little cheeky break tackle for dodging on a 2.
I don't think so.
Okay. You want the guard. So I wondered if you might have taken that one. Thick skull's an interesting interaction. But...
If break tackle was a normal, right? It's a 60k goblin, but you only get the 1/2 plus.
Because you can only do it once per turn. Yeah, sure.
I'm not totally sure it's worth it. Like, so I used to take thick skull trolls in Blood Bowl 2 quite regularly. I used to guard thick skull was what I used to take on a troll. But now that you can guarantee the double, it's not worth it. Because if your trolls die, it's very bad news. Like trying to do a goblin drive with 1 or even no trolls is very difficult. So, the thick skull keeps them around. I quite like it, but it's not as good as block and pro and whatever and so on and so on. Like coming back to the apple, right? You can apple a KO on a troll if it's because normally I'll put the trolls on the line of scrimmage and sometimes they get removed. So having the apple there for a KO troll is pretty nice as well.
Sure. Okay, so that's your starting roster, and you've talked through. You start scoring here, then you bring it onto here. So the Pogo, we're taking block here if we can get anything.
I would say something like this. You'd be pretty happy to just play this forever, right? As you give goblins more skills, they probably get worse.
Because the opponent gets better. It's not that they don't get better. It's everyone gets better around them, right?
There's some exceptions to that. And it depends, are you in matchmaking? Are you in a scheduled league and so on? But generally speaking, you can make pretty good use of inducements. So, that could be close to a finished goblin team.
Wow.
Okay. Which is maybe what we're going to look at here, right? So we've thrown a few more things in. So the pro on the troll, it does 2 things. One is it's good at damage. So if you don't roll the POW, particularly when you've got block, right, you can try and re-roll those pushes to get the extra things. And then the one is the really stupid. So, anyone who's played ogres will be aware of how bad boneheading all ogres in a turn is. really stupiding 2 trolls for goblins is pretty bad as well. Like, because pretty much your trolls can just stand there, right? You don't have to activate them. When you're in the middle of the pitch, your trolls can just be, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to be useful doing nothing. At some point, you have to try and get up the pitch, and that means you have to move the trolls to come with the rest of the team. Now, some opponents will I'm just going to base things on your trolls so they can't go with the team, and then you have to leave them behind anyway. But as soon as the troll stupids, it could be out of the drive, effectively, because you've got to move at a certain speed, and you might just have to leave it behind if it's stupids.
Yeah.
And it could be that your troll is going for, I'm going to try and blitz this piece, and that's the thing that opens the path for us to go. And if it's stupid, you lose the blitz, and that could be the end of the drive, right? So, giving you that 3+ reroll of the stupid is really strong. You can't use it if you're prone or if you're already stupid, but it's still really, really useful.
Sure. So it's like a free reroll, isn't it? Because the trolls have got loner 3+, and the pro is a 3+ to make it work. So it's like throwing a team reroll at your action all the time, just with a couple of mitigations.
There are cases where it's that important that I'll pro it, and then I'll use a team reroll on the pro if I really have to.
Wow. Okay.
It's maybe not the best idea, but sometimes you're like, well, I'd quite like the reroll for later, but this has to work as well.
Sure. Okay. So block pro, we've double blocked them, and then pro, and if we got to double block pro, that would also be fine. Notice no guard, everyone. So Fanatic has strength access. You didn't put Mighty Blow on it. Why didn't you put Mighty Blow on it, and why have you put block on it?
Effectively, the Fanatic is a piece that I use to move the position. So in an ideal world, kind of gradually kill things. The Fanatic gradually moves up the pitch, and the rest of the team follows it up the pitch.
Right.
And it's not really hitting things. It's moving into the space, and then maybe the troll clears something out, and then everything else goes and cages around where they've ended up. That kind of thing. Okay. And so what I can't really be risking is rolling 1 in 9s, the both down and the skull. So as soon as the Fanatic's trying to hit a strength 4 player or there's an assist, it becomes a bit hairy to start rolling dice with it, because not only does it die if I take the skull, but it eats my rerolls.
Right. Okay,
so it's not super reliant at hitting things, right?
Yeah. So if I offered you damage output or reliability, in fact, in the trolls you're taking the reliability, and now on the Fanatic you're taking the reliability because you want your gameplay to work.
My damage output is coming from my chainsaw and from my hooligan primarily.
Right.
And we'll come on to that, but the Looney is the blitzer, the hooligan's the fouler. That's where the damage comes from.
Yeah. Damage
from the rest of it's nice, but it's not like the game plan as such.
Yeah.
And the other reason for the block is, my view is, until you get block on a Fanatic, you should never have it based at the end of a turn. So if you're doing your third movement with the Fanatic and one of the squares is, I might end up sat next to something, sometimes you might gamble on it, and you might be willing to do the go for it afterwards, right? But as soon as you start leaving it based at the end of your turn, it's going to get uphilled and it's going to die pretty quickly.
Especially if your opponent's got block, right? Like, I will absolutely uphill a Fanatic if I've got block and I can make it 2 dice. It's 25% to get rid of it, and once it's gone, brilliant.
Exactly, and people will still do the same thing with wrestlers, right? But if your game plan changes from don't base anything to don't base wrestlers, that's a pretty different thing.
Sure.
And I'm, if my opponent wants to blitz and uphill my Fanatic, I'm pretty happy with that. It's one thing giving it away for free at the end of the turn. It's another thing saying, come and blitz it.
Sure.
As an uphill. That's a different thing. The other thing is Mighty Blow doesn't work when they're on the floor, right? So a lot of what I'll try and do with the Fanatic is knock things over and then just get the extra free armor roll with my Fanatic. But Mighty Blow doesn't work on that one.
Okay. So you've not skilled the Looney. We've talked about the hooligan being a finished product.
And then, from the Pogoer, whether you... I don't know what because stats are really good on it. So whether you go for sure hands and block early, or whether you go for stats early, both are fine, to be honest.
Okay, so you can diverge. You could go, you're taking sure hands as your first fixed point, and then it is either, if you feel like you need block for the survivability, then you take the block, and if you feel like you just want the extra range and the effectiveness of the player...
There's a whole other conversation about, like, randoming stuff to get TV efficiency, right? So,
yes.
So whether you're, like, randoming generals first to try and get block and sure hands as the first thing, and, that's quicker to cycle, or whether you're randoming stats until you get an agility first.
Wow. Yeah.
It's there's various, it depends what you're doing, but effectively there's no wrong answer there, I don't think.
And they will score because they're movement 7 and they're great. So you'll not have a problem leveling them. It's just what order are you taking the stuff in and how are you getting there? Fair enough.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, Bomber wasn't in the previous build and has now appeared.
My view is I wouldn't have a Bomber.
Okay.
Probably. I don't think I would buy one, but this is to give the concepts of the leveling, isn't it? So, so there's effectively 4 options, I think. There's accurate, there's pass, there's running pass, and there's safe pass. Yep. So safe pass means you don't fumble on a 1, which means it's not a turnover, which is pretty strong, to be fair. None of your secret weapons have loner, so you can safely reroll stuff. So maybe you just re-roll the 1, but
does safe pass then mean that actually you mentioned this in the beginning when we talked through the players, that one of the problems with the Bomber is you kind of have to, if you're taking it, you have to open a turn with it. Safe pass then mitigates that fail state of, if you roll a 1, they just hold on to the bomb, don't they? You just don't throw it and it just nothing happens, right? Yeah,
so it helps, but it doesn't remove it because you could still wildly inaccurate it 1 square away.
Right. Okay. So
it's not totally risk free, but it is a lot more risk free.
Safe pass is actually way less bad than you might think. It's not the sexy choice, but it is an effective choice.
Yeah, running pass allows you to move after throwing the bomb. There's a caveat here in that I haven't tried all of this in Blood Bowl 3. I have no idea if this is all how it's implemented. I haven't tried any of it, but. At least by the rule book, running pass allows you to throw a bomb and then move.
Okay.
Because a lot of this stuff is like FAQ clarifications and so on. But it's pretty good because eventually the bomber gets quite out of position and you have to choose between moving and throwing a bomb.
Yeah.
And being, that. If you're going for the fun variation of Goblins, I would recommend taking a running past Bomber. It's pretty nice to throw a bomb every turn and then run around. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, you can use it as an assist maybe, but I've been playing Halflings, and the number of times where you get Cindy and she's just out of position after the first couple of turns, you have to spend a turn moving her, and then what they do is they move the other way again. So now she's out of position again. The running pass would really help you mitigate some of that to a degree, I think. So. Okay, so accurate pass, running pass, safe pass.
Yeah, so the reason I take accurate as the first one is to mitigate the wildly inaccurate on a short pass. I think the wildly inaccurate can be so bad, particularly if you're fielding the bomber on the offense, which maybe you're not. But maybe you want to try and skill it up, so maybe you are putting it on offense and trying to do some handoffs sometimes to get it to score. So. I just think the chance of the wildly inaccurate can be anywhere, right? And your players are quite often together, and it can be pretty disastrous. So I think the accurate is my preference.
Okay. You mentioned in the last roster we would be randoming general skills, so we've just picked out 2. This isn't a definitive list. This is just the 2 that. I think you said that you would keep above all else.
Yeah, so let's bring the skill tree up. But I think block sure hands if you're not using a Pogoer. Sure hands is good for a ball carrier, but maybe you only want it on the Pogoer. I think strip ball. I think kick is okay. Because quite often you're forced into scoring, and defending a short drive is easier if the ball's not anywhere near you.
Mm-hmm.
I think throw is okay, like we talked about in the math bit. Wrestle's good, strip ball's good. There's probably only really Fend, Frenzy, Shadowing. Tackle, I think tackle's no good, but I know people take it. So pretty much all of them are pretty good, more or less. It becomes a bit of management of TV and where you're playing, and like you don't want 6 random general goblins, but you might want 2, for example.
Right. Okay. And tackle you're pairing with something else like wrestle or block, and that's the problem. It's not tackle per se is bad. It's that tackle then needs block or wrestle to become fully effective, and the chance of hitting that and that in a random very small. Yeah.
But like effectively, you want to try and build a Sacker, and early on, strip ball's pretty good on a goblin. As you play more developed teams, almost everything starts to get sure hands, right? So eventually, he probably stops being useful and gets replaced with something else. But strip ball is pretty good early on. I really like pros we've talked about, like trying to get things towards the sideline and surfing them is pretty effective. And pro goes quite well with wrestle, tackle, strip ball, like those kind of things. But so you could maybe try and random 2 of them. It's not impossible.
Okay, and they won't live very long, right? So it's not like we're orc linemen that just don't die. We're talking about things that get mown down on a daily basis. Yeah,
and so obviously block is pretty good. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's worth 40k, right? I think I would rather have 2 goblins than 1 block goblin.
Yeah. But now you're entering into the realms of our skills. The skill trees, are they costed effectively, and are they optimal? Because I agree with you. There's nearly no skills in the game that are worth 40k. But block at 10k is insane if you can random it on a general. Block at 40k, it's block. It's still block. Context matters a little bit, but not by 30 TV and not amplified over many players. So, I think you've got a random on these guys to pick anything.
No, but effectively, you're trying to build 2 players. You're trying to build a Sacker, and you're trying to build something to help the Sacker, which probably is guard, right? You probably want a guard and a Sacker, something like that.
Yeah.
And the block piece kind of helps with the guard, and you could random the block first, right, and then get to guard. I'm not sure. It's quite an expensive player, right? And then the other option is to try and random a Fowler. So a random dirty player is 60k, and a hooligan is 65k. So you are saving 5k.
Which goes into your inducements bucket, I guess. Right?
Yeah,
it's all these little things. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it helps.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how much you're left with 45k of inducement money. It's almost like your league opponents see your TV and then can adjust their TV to match.
Yeah. Okay, right. Let's look at this is insane. This is not what either of us think is real. I mean, you'll see on the page here, it's 2.1k, 2.1 million. This is just, if you took a player to all the way through, you would end up with this type of player. We do not think you will get to this ever before anyone writes in the comments that this is unreasonable. So
this I would say there's three of these that might actually happen. Okay. So the first one is the Pogoer. So I did have a fumble team where I played 100 games and I had this player. So I have done it once, never again. But effectively, we've got our two doubles that we want. We've got block and sure hands. Mm-hmm. We've got agility 2+, and we've got movement 9+. Yep. And this is one of the cases where that 235 TV is worth it, right? If this is pushing my TV up to 1300, 1400, I'm quite happy. Yep. Because there's a few things, right? The movement 9 means it's such a reliable 1-turn. So you can either chain push it off the line of scrimmage. I guess you might want to try and get sidestep at some point. I don't know if we've got a slot for it.
Yeah, we've got one more skill slot.
You can save the Fanatic to get those pushes. You only need 2. You can do a very, very reliable 1-turn because it can go anywhere on a 2+. The other reason it's worth the TV is because you don't have to do anything on your offense to try and score, as long as you're willing to roll a few dice and not snake. But effectively, the problems with goblins quite often come where you're trying to have to push forwards to actually get into a scoring position. That player, you don't need to. You just have to go, as long as you're 2 squares forwards, that's fine. Yeah. So you can be a lot more like, you spend more of the half concentrating on killing the other team, and having to score is an afterthought that you don't really have to focus on.
Yeah, this team is insane, but that player definitely is as a player who plays regular teams, that is one of the players on this that would worry me. And you'd be thinking, how on earth do I stop it? And you can't. Yeah. You just have to hit it. You have to kill it. It has to die.
Yeah. And obviously you're not. It's spending a lot of its time on the bench. It's not playing defensive drives. On the offense, it's the ball carrier.
Yeah.
As soon as you look like you're in trouble, you're probably just going to score. It could get there, and maybe it begins to get apple privilege when it gets close.
Okay.
Obviously, you don't want that to die. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I think the Fanatic can maybe get close to this. I don't think you'll get 2 stats on it. Like that's way too much. But once you get block, they do die less.
Yeah.
I kind of like randoming the Mighty Blow. So in Blood Bowl 2, you can only actually get 6 of the strength skills. So you've got a 1 in 6 of getting the Mighty Blow.
What? Yeah. Can't get strong arm. I mean, there's a load of them that are blocked out. I doubt you can have multiple block.
Oh, so the ones that are blocked out, you can't take.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's only 6 skills that you could take.
On the list of things that you need to tell Cyanide is a Fanatic can't have break tackle. When is it going to use break tackle?
Okay. So it's actually a 1 in 5 chance then of hitting Mighty Blow.
But that's but then arguably you can use Pile Driver. I have taken a Pile Driver Fanatic to an AF tournament before.
Well, we'll talk about that then, I guess. But
like you've got half a chance of randoming Mighty Blow, right? And
God's not terrible.
Maybe, it's pretty good for 10k.
Stand firm's not terrible.
Yeah. But effectively, once you get the block, then they can start to survive. So, the movement up is great on them. It's really, really good. There are some other things you could consider, like sure feet. My own view is if you give a Fanatic sure feet, it's going to tempt you into making go for it that you shouldn't, and eventually you'll snake one, it'll die.
Yeah.
Like, I think just not having the temptation is better than having the skill, albeit it is pretty good, right?
Yeah. What you don't ever try and give it is diving tackle. I know it's grayed out. Never ever think about diving tackle. Do not do that. Okay, so we covered that. We covered the Fanatic. You put a couple of skills on the Looney here.
Pro, I haven't tried it since they changed the rules that you turn over on a kickback. When the rules were that a kickback wasn't a turnover, I quite liked Pro, I think. Because effectively, it allowed you to play lower rerolls or keep the rerolls for something else. My gut feel is it's probably not worth it now. Like, I'm still pretty happy if I get the Prez to Nuffle that lets me give something Pro. It definitely goes on the Looney. But I think there's so many scenarios where the kickback just has to work that you just put the full reroll on, even if it's already got Pro.
And that's where you're talking about the turn ordering, because you're using the chainsaw pretty early on in the turn. First action, second action, third action.
Yeah. And so a lot of what your like turn is as a Goblin coach is, what do I chainsaw? If it breaks the armor, what am I doing? If it doesn't break the armor, what am I doing? Because if the answer to if it doesn't break the armor, well, I can't protect the chainsaw and it's going to die, you probably shouldn't do it. There's exceptions, right? And particularly if I'm playing strong coaches, there'll be times where I'll just take the punt that it's going to break the armor on this armor 10 player with Mighty Blow tackle and so on and so on. Like, the upside is so good that it's worth the risk, even if I lose the chainsaw.
Yeah.
You know, maybe the result of that game is coming into, can I roll the 7 here? But sometimes I think that's the chance you've got to get. But generally, either the answer is, if it doesn't work, I've got a player that's already basing that one that can push it away, and then I come over here. In which case, chainsaw doesn't work. I need an assist over here and one over here, and then I do that, and then I have to foul it, and then I can cage there. Or the chainsaw breaks the armor, in which case I make like a elongated cage with the ball carrier and the chainsaw in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And then I have a much better gang foul on the thing that I broke the armor for. Or it dies and I need to gang foul something else, and the rest of my team needs to be in a different shape.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are certainly cases, right, where the chainsaw goes later in the turn. But for me, I take the approach of, if my chainsaw snakes, I'm probably going to lose, so let's just assume it doesn't.
Sure.
Okay. The dodge skill. So this to me depends on if you use the Looney on defense a lot, and I don't always. Like, sometimes on defense, I'm just like, I'm going to bench my Looney and my Fanatic and make sure I have them for offense. If you quite often put it on defense, and if you quite often like use it as like a safety type player, dodge can be pretty good because it can open up some like sacking plays that you wouldn't otherwise have. Because quite often, you know, you might have that like 3+3+2+2+ with the Looney, but you don't want to spend a reroll on it. I would say generally, like,
or certainly not 2 rerolls, right? So once you committed the first reroll, you now feel like in poker, well, I'm pot committed. I've kind of got to keep going.
Exactly. Because you've always got a 1 turn in your back pocket. Generally, you probably like you have to be more conservative with rerolls on defense. So the dodge is more about that than it is about hitting it.
Okay. So we're saying that
your Looney shouldn't be getting hit.
Yeah.
Even if you've got it, even if you've given it dodge, if you leave it open, it's going to get hit with tackle. You know.
Yeah.
No. People will spend right. If you leave your Looney open to get hit, people will spend rerolls on it if they don't knock it down all the time.
I will definitely.
Yeah. Nobody's choosing a push. And people will take both. Like, people will take a block on it as well. Like a both, even if it's not a block payer, they'll take the both down and roll the dice on it. So,
getting rid of it is huge.
The dodge is for that like defensive play, not for the getting it hit. But my personal opinion is a rookie Looney is better than a leveled Looney. If a Looney skills up, it gets to enjoy retirement for having lived that long. For a nice way of putting it.
Okay. Right, so we've covered all those. The bomber, we sort of talked about that in the last one. You've highlighted that there are 4 choice skills. We've gone through the 4 skills, so that's the 4. I guess we don't need to cover that. But in here, you started talking about the generalization, and then these are the skill trees that sort of flesh it out. So you've got your block, you mentioned guard. You've added something else on there as well.
Yeah, the sidestep. So I mean, that's partly. Like, you could give it diving tackle as well, right? But this is the piece that goes and harasses things. So being able to control where it is quite important.
Mm-hmm.
You could just give it block and guard because, you know, a lot of what it's doing is dodging into a cage to assist the sacker, that kind of thing. Or like if a player's running low on players, what they'll sometimes do is just put the ball carrier in between 2 other players so that you can't hit it with a goblin, right? If you're going to hit it, it's uphill. If you're and so being able to put a guard in it is pretty useful, right? Or if you've got a dauntless goblin, they'll just put guards either side of it. You can't do anything. So, you know, the guard is pretty helpful for if you're going to play aggressive defense in as I'm going to try and get the ball, then a player like this is pretty handy.
But they don't live long.
So I mean, in Blood Bowl 3, in ladder so far, I've taken the approach of randoming strength, trying to get guard. I've got 2, and I think they've managed 3 games between them.
Oh wow. Okay.
There we go. They were good for the 2 games they got. Oh yeah, this is the Saka, the Strip Ball Wrestle Pro. Like, there's some other things you can give it. I would probably try and random it to that. Yeah. I think 160k is expensive. Same with the Bomber, right? Bomber Dribble Snort is arguably as good a player as that, and he's 50k, not 125.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, this 2.1 million.
Yeah. Really, the players I want here are the Trolls, the Fanatic, and the Pogoer. The rest of it is, but you might want a couple of the other ones.
Okay.
We've built a 1-turner, so we've given him catch, sprint, sure feet, movement.
Yeah.
Agility is really good on them as well, but it's expensive, right? Because at the end of the day, the 1-turn is like a last resort. Trying to build it as a actual plan is not a good idea in my opinion. So I personally wouldn't build a player like this. But if I manage to random sprint and sure feet together, then I might think about keeping it.
Okay, so I guess we've got 1 player left. I'll ask that question once we've looked at this one. This is your last player, and you built this.
Yeah. So the diving tackle sidestep is actually pretty good, I think, to have one of them, because you'll have quite a lot of scenarios where you've ended up having to do some dodges through, or you've done a handoff and run away, but there's that one player that's a problem, and it may be like in a Chaos Dwarf. Like things like Chaos Dwarves are matchups where this happens quite a lot, and they'll have a bull that can just 4+ and kill you, but the diving tackle to tag it is really helpful. You don't need so you only need 1. The sidestep with it is nice, and it makes it a bit more useful in other situations than just putting a diving tackle on something. Like if you're trying to play it defensively and stop a ball carrier, the sidestep makes it actually quite helpful. Just a diving tackle on its own isn't much use in that scenario. So this makes it a bit more of a rounded player. But having 1 is helpful, and if I end up with a lot of normals on Goblins, like if I don't have the money to cycle everything and I have to start taking skills, having 3 sidestep Goblins is pretty nice for things like if I'm going to a NAF tournament where I think Skaven are the meta pick, I might consider bringing 3 sidestep Goblins with me just to stop their 1-turn.
1-turn, right? Yeah. Okay. So in all of this, the skill tree access for Goblins seems to suck.
Yes.
You're randoming most of this and then building once you've got the random that you need to start it all off. Is that
pretty? Yeah. You like if you said I've got to play Chaos team that's 2-1-2-5 TV. Do I want to play this, or do I want to play a rookie team and have 1 million inducements? I'll take the rookie team.
Okay.
It's
it's not close because you want the Morgs and the Bombers and the bribes. Yeah, sure. Okay. That makes sense. This is what you could do, ladies and gentlemen, not what you should do.
Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, it's not what you could do either, because they'll all die before they get anywhere near it.
This is what you can do in a custom team editor.
Yes.
Right.
This is Andy sat down and said, "Give Goblins as many skills as you want."
Yeah. Right, we've got Goblin setups to talk through next. And I was surprised that you had both offensive and defensive. So we're going to look at the offensive stuff first. You put together 3 different ones. 2 of them are variants of the same thing. So this is if they've split the line of scrimmage or they've put it together. This is your together line of scrimmage first.
Sure. Yeah, so this is 3 players in the middle. So ideally, we want to take 3 dice blocks with the Trolls if we can do it. Sometimes there's strength 4 players, right, on the line of scrimmage, but ideally you want 3 dice blocks with the Trolls, which probably means they need a Goblin either side, and probably they're going to be 2 Goblins coming in for the edges to make it. The Fanatic's in the middle, so he's guaranteed a hit. I quite like the 2 forwards, 1 back with a Fanatic. So the Chainsaw is number 4 here.
Yeah.
Now, I think with the 3 on the line of scrimmage, you could put the Chainsaw where the Fanatic is and put the Fanatic so he's only next to 2. And, part of this is I don't like to put the chainsaw on the line of scrimmage, because if the kickoff event is a blitz, the chainsaw dies. And it's bad enough having a blitz against you with goblins, never mind losing the Looney as part of it. So I've certainly had, like, I've seen people, I've played streamers, and I've seen them sort of look at it and go, well, why did he blitz with the Looney? Why didn't he just put it next to the player to begin with? But that's why. But when they're three together, you can safely put it in the middle, right? So that's worth considering.
Okay.
But effectively, the Fanatic's going to go and hit things. The Looney's going to try something that's not over, and then the Trolls are going to 3-dice things away, and then we're going to gang foul something. So the Hooligan is like also protected, so he can't be on a hit on a blitz.
Yeah.
He's ready to foul something. The reason that they're off by 1 is that I don't want the kickoff to scatter onto them. So if the kickoff goes up, it lands in the middle, not on them. Because I don't want either the Looney or the Hooligan to catch the ball. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So
and then the Pogo in the middle is the ball carrier. The one next to him is just to cover the ball, right? Because if it goes deep and something goes wrong on the line of scrimmage, I'm totally screwed if I don't cover the ball first. So it's so that if something does go wrong, he can at least pick it up and hand it off to the Pogo and get back to the middle the following turn.
Right. So if the ball was down here, your first action is actually just to run this guy down. He's not picking the ball up. He's just going to go and stand next to it.
Exactly. And he's not covering the pickup. He's covering the something else fails. At least I can get it somewhat
and then
sensibly.
You can pick it up, hand it to him, and next turn you could then stabilize. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Anything else you want to mention on this one?
Not really. No. I mean, the 8 and 10 are trying to cover the blitz a little bit. There is a world where 7 and 11 double up on it. So if I'm really scared of a blitz, if I'm playing Skaven, maybe I double the outsides and then move everything into the Trolls.
Yeah, that stops them getting hit.
You could do that as well, right? So the reason. Let's go to the next one.
Okay. Line of scrimmage. No, I don't want to save things. There we go.
Yeah. So here the chainsaw is the same concept. It's not blitzable, right? But the point of the reason it's there and not like where you had it in the side is on a quick snap it can step in.
So you can put it into here.
Don't have to. Yeah, and then I don't have. That's why. That's why it's in that square.
The black button does not exist. There we go. Right.
So this is where they've split them. So there's two gaps between each player on the line of scrimmage.
There'll be one stood in the diagonal between these two, one stood between 9 and 3, and then there's one stood in front of number 5.
So with this variation, we don't have the coverage with the Pogoer, so it's a bit scarier, a tiny bit.
So if you were playing against goblins, would you recommend that people should split the LOS, or which is more uncomfortable for you? The split LOS. I'm asking for a friend.
No comment.
Okay.
So it is possible to go and watch some replays of me playing against goblins with other teams. Those are things that have happened. It depends what the race is, but with most teams, I'll put 4 players on the line of scrimmage. So I'll put them like 1 a gap, 1 a gap, 1 a gap, 1 a gap, and then everything else is 1 row behind that in like the same thing.
Yeah.
So I stack the line of scrimmage as heavily as you can. Like, if you play like somebody who's never played the game before and their defensive setup is, here's a line of all my players, and you think, hey, that's pretty good against goblins. I don't like it when people do that.
Because you've got the strength to remove 2 things, and then there's only 1 thing left, and goblins can gang up on it. It's when there's there's 4, 5, 6 things, then you just can't deal with them. Okay.
I can't both attack it and keep everything safe.
Yeah.
There's no place where the Looney can be afterwards. The Fanatic probably at least gets uphilled. I can't do a very comfortable gang foul. There is a world where it goes wrong, right? The Fanatic might have a Stormer and kill 3 players. I might chainsaw and I could remove 6 or 7, right?
Yeah.
But I probably won't, and it makes it very uncomfortable. I mean, maybe people think I'm just trying to goad people into doing that against me, but that is genuinely what I've done, and I don't think I've ever lost against goblins.
I can
I'm not certain.
This guide can be titled AndyDavo's Guide to How to Play Against Goblins, which was the actual objective of recording this video. Excellent.
Yeah,
Right.
but it's more effective with like something like Orcs or Chaos, where you have strength 4 players to put on the line, right? That if it's high armor and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But effectively with this setup, we've set up number 1 troll to do a 3 dice into the middle.
Yeah.
We've set the chainsaw to step in and blitz the one in front of it, and then the Fanatic can move forwards and has a chance of hitting either. He's got 2 out of 3 is running over something. And then something moves across to give number 2 a 3 dice.
Step there, or you can come that way.
Probably number 10 moves across, because 7 and 11 might be doing something to cover the ball, depending where the kick is. And then the hooligan, he works as an assist to begin with. It's a negative that he's not protected, but I prefer it when people do this against me than the narrow thing. I think this leaves me with a better position at the end if it goes well. And if the rest of the team is far enough back that I'm not too scared of a blitz and so on, then I'm quite happy. I'll pretty rarely blitz on a turn 1 other than that chainsaw one, right?
Yeah.
What I don't want to do is isolate my troll, and it's probably going to be quite hard to make a blitz with a goblin. So I'm pretty happy to just try and remove the 3 players that you put on the line and ignore the rest of your team.
Okay, that's interesting. And then we put in, after a little bit of discussion, a throw teammate type concept.
Yep.
So this is for a specific, it's turn 8, it's your offensive drive now, and you've only got the 1 turn. This is the sort of structure that you might want to consider when throwing teammate. And there's been some thought put into this.
So at one point, I think I did actually draw out the this is all the possible scatters if I kick it in the middle, and these are optimal positions for them. That was a long time ago, and I've probably forgotten it all. But in general, you're trying to cover the corners, right? So your 12 and 11 are covering the shallow kicks. Your 8 and 14, the deep ones, along with 6. 10 and 7 are there for if it goes really deep, you at least have a chance of handing it off to them. So sometimes you can set up to get a chain push backwards if you really need it to get somebody into a similar position.
Let me explain it, because you said that and it took me a moment to realise what you meant. So at the moment, if we look at number 14, for example, the goblin's going to get thrown as number 9, and we've counted the squares 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they go for it. So you can hand the ball there. But if the ball goes sideways or behind 14, he now can't get to number 9. Because he's only got 6 squares of normal movement and then 2 go for it. So what you're saying then is if the ball goes here, let's say, then you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, go for it. That's not enough. But if it goes just behind 14, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you can then hand it to number 10 and a troll runs backwards and throws it. So you can still, it's a secondary chance or a failure state type chance.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, there's a bit of nuance as to how the defense sets up, if they totally backline or if they're in the midfield somewhere. I quite like to try and chain push a goblin forwards to throw it over the line rather than relying on the dodges if they come too far forwards. So I might use 10 and 7 to then work that chain push. 11 and 12 can be backup options if it's out of range of number 9 as well.
Right.
Because there's an argument to put them slightly deeper, right, and right on the sideline. But
when I was first making this, we decided that I was going to try, and then he was going to fix it, and I had them actually. I think it was maybe here. I think number 11 was here.
I suspect really they want to be one further in, so that the kickoff on the diagonal lands on them in the centre.
Out there, or do you mean down one?
No, that one. Yeah.
Okay.
The first one. So, because ideally you want to maximise the chance of something catching it, right?
Yeah.
But also the coverage of the range and so on. But this is something like what I would do, I think.
Okay.
There's an argument to say keep one of the trolls off the line. There's an argument to swap number 10 with number 1, because if you get a perfect defense, or you're basically in big trouble. Whereas a perfect defense with this setup, you still have a chance.
Yeah. So if someone was looking at this and saying, right, how do I do it? The structure, the idea is that you have people in the backfield that are semicircled with 2 go-for-its can get to the player that you'd like to throw it, and then there's a load of other people around the sidelines to just go and pick the ball up if it goes into an edge that can also do the same thing. The idea is to take the ball to the person that's going to get thrown. The person that gets thrown then does that. And then one of the subtleties is the throw is from where the troll is, not where from the ball is. So the troll can always walk forward a square, and then you could throw them a 9 and you're 1 further forward. So people should bear that in mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else to mention on that, or should we move on to the defensive?
No. Let's move on.
All right. Start of the drive, start of the half. A turn 1 defense. This is against frenzy. No frenzy here. If you've got, this does not work against frenzy.
I've definitely still done it against frenzy on occasion, albeit
Me
accidentally. Too. But I think this is what I will most commonly do. So there are certainly arguments against putting the trolls in the line. My experience has been, even against claw-heavy teams, I will put the trolls on the line. Unless I'm playing some kind of build with like full roster of goblins and loads of appos, then I'll maybe not do it. But generally speaking, I just trust in the regen if they die sort of thing, put them on the line. They're there to take the hits. If you put 3 goblins on the line and they kill 2 of them and blitz a third and kill another one, and then all of a sudden you're 3 players down, that's the end of the drive, right? This gives you the best chance, because if you can keep the team, the more players you keep, the better chance you have of stopping them. And yes, a troll dying is very bad, but I think, and it is wise, I subscribe to trolls on the line, and not everyone does, but okay. I'm not saying it's right, but it's what I do, and I'm usually right.
And you put the loony in the middle. I'm guessing that's so you can blitz either side, right? If we put the pogo in the middle, yes, you can attack either side, but you're not really diving forward. Certainly not sending your pogo unsupported.
I wouldn't always play the pogo, right? So the problem with this setup is you only protect 3 players, right?
Yeah.
And this is the issue with that team we looked at, where we've got all of these. Effectively, I need to protect the bomber, the loony if I have them. I need to protect my sneaky git fowler. I need to protect my ball carrier. I need to protect that guard piece that I have. And then all of a sudden, well, I can't even play all the players I want to, because I can only protect 3 of them. And I can only protect 3 of them on the first turn. Really, on a defensive drive, at best you can probably protect 1 player. Right. So, like this is the issue with the loony and the bomber and the three weapon thing coming back, is put them both on the defense. How do you keep them both safe?
Sure.
Okay. But anyway, this is something along the lines of what I would go for. There's no.
It's a good opening.
It's nothing. And there's things like dwarves I would consider just putting everything out of range of being blitzed.
Right. Yeah. No point eating an extra hit.
If I do this against dwarves on my turn 1, probably lost something, and then at least all but one of the players are going to be based by tackle. Maybe all of them. So it's like, what do you do from there? So being like further back against something like dwarves is probably worth considering.
Starting somewhere here, or even as far back. Yeah, something in that range.
So like eight back.
Oh right, wow, okay. You really are.
Well, maybe you want, if they don't have many rerolls, maybe you want them to try and go for it to get through the table.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. And then I've got 2 more setups. We did the anti-2 turn and anti-quick score. So the anti-quick score, you said, was not actually trying to stop someone scoring.
Yeah, so let's say my drive has gone really well. It's turn 8.
Turn 9, yeah.
Turn 9, they're set up and 1-0 down. And they're a team that's got, like, they're an elf team or whatever. And I think they're probably just going to try and score in 2 turns. I do something like this so that I have a bit of responsiveness if they've gone to like the sideline or something, if I want to, I can try and either attack them or screen it. Everything is in range of more or less the whole pitch. So if I want to just go and gang up on the one player that's over there and gang foul it, I can.
Yeah, and we've put the secret. Well, put a couple of a secret weapon on there.
Yeah.
If you think they're going to score quickly, do you actually field the Looney, or is it bribe dependent?
Yeah, it depends how many bribes I have. Part of the logic here is like trying to like play a normal defense as you would another team, where you kind of like you keep the whole pitch defended and you try and like stop the team coming forward at all. It doesn't work very well with Goblins. It can if your armor rolls are incredible and nothing dies. There are games where you can just be, oh, I've played perfect positional Blood Bowl and it's turn 8 and they can't break through. It doesn't happen very often. What's more helpful is to try and push them to a sideline and then either try and push them down or push them in. So I'm giving them the space saying, come this way. What I don't want them to do is cage at the front and then just mow their way through my team over 8 turns. I'm going, come and take this space over here, and then I'll try and deal with it. Or it's I'll just try and murder your team until I have like 5 or 6 player advantage, and then I'll try and make you score and give me a 2-turn. That's the kind of... So for a lot of games, like probably it's only recently that I've started doing that other one. This is what I used to use all the time for anything. I used to always do this.
Right.
Not sure if it's right, but this is always what I do.
Well, it works 60% of the time. So
60% of the time it works all the time.
Yeah. Okay, so then the last one is the anti-2-turn. We spoke about this a while ago, so I recognise this setup. And the idea here is that you're trying to stop an actual 2-turn score. You scored on turn 7 or 8, whatever.
Yeah.
And you're trying to stop that. What's the thinking here?
Yeah, so, I mean, the context here is that for a long time, I used to stall when I shouldn't. So I was that scared of being able to defend a 2-turn that I would just stall it to turn 8, regardless of how bad an idea it was. And I think this gives you a chance. So the caveat here is you either need a third big guy, so you've got a star player who can act as the 1 and 2 trolls are in this picture, or you need 11 players. If you don't have 11 players, this doesn't really work. The sort of chevron-y things don't really work with Goblins. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to limit how many players can get into scoring range, and we're trying to make it awkward for them to do it. So this is really like it's a movement 6. They've got some high strength players that can hit a troll, but they probably have to make some go for it to do it, and then to like try and get enough players through that they have multiple threats, or they have the ball in a safe position that's in scoring range is quite difficult. And even if they can get down that sideline, they've only got down one sideline, and if I can roll some dice, my 6 players there can all dodge round and make a screen that's quite hard to get through. That's the general concept.
Yeah.
If I'm playing like Elves or something where they don't have anything that can 2 dice a strength 5 player and they're quite fast, I do this and then the whole thing is just higher up.
Okay.
Or the trolls would be level with the first line.
With the
Goblins,
first line.
right?
Yeah. So and so it looks weird because normally you never leave a troll unattended. But actually, the 6 players in the middle are shutting down the middle of the pitch, and then the trolls are just being used as anchor points to lock down a sideline, and they can only pick one of the 2 sidelines to go down. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I guess that covers off setups as well. There are a couple of questions that we've not quite covered, so I'm going to put this as a miscellaneous category. So, inducements. If you are giving inducements, what ordering are you taking stuff in? So, from 50k all the way out to as much money as you might need, what are you doing?
There are obviously there's some caveats as to what the team I'm playing against is and how I think my best chance of winning that match is. If I've got 50k, I'm probably taking Bomber Dribble Snot. It hasn't happened as much as I expected. I kind of assumed everyone would overdog him if they were able to, and it hasn't really happened. I think it's only happened once in 60 odd games. I'm a little surprised by, but it's probably a few bribes after that.
Yeah.
And then if I'm getting the bigger numbers, having one of those like Ripper, Varag, I think Varag is a better option than Ripper generally, but if I have a choice of Varag and 1 bribe or Ripper and 2 bribes, then I take Ripper and 2 bribes. So exactly how the math works out kind of changes which of them you take.
Yeah.
If I've got loads of inducements, then Morg is a no-brainer, really. Like, in an ideal world, I've probably got something along the lines of Morg, Bomber, 2 bribes, a bias referee, something like that. If you're going really big in inducements, and I know there's a TV cap now, right? So it probably doesn't come up that often. But if you're going in like the 1,000 range, then you're probably taking 2 big guys over Bomber. I think like the Morg Varag is probably the way to go.
Okay. And
then you're taking the bribes to keep the weapons around. And then I like kegs and apples to try and keep the team alive. I'm not really sure on a wizard. Like, I feel like goblins trying to like defend and go and get the ball is a bit of a last resort. Like, the primary game plan is try and kill the other team, and that depends if they have a bench or not. But if I'm playing a team with 11 players, a defensive drive, I may just completely ignore the ball and just try and get a numerical advantage. It's a viable strategy, as sad as advising people not to play the game, but it's effective, right? It's effective.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah.
Those like sacking players are for when I'm 1-0 down in the second half and I've got to score twice. That's what they're for.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, we've covered, I think, a comprehensive amount of stuff across setups, builds, and a little bit of like how to use the team. It would be nice to put some gameplay in. However, we've tried to talk this out, and putting gameplay footage into a guide video is incredibly difficult. If you want to watch someone play Goblins to an incredibly high standard, please go and watch Yudligard. The link will be in the comments description. He said earlier he streams weekday evenings UK time, and then on the weekday mornings, Monster. So yeah, thank you very much indeed.
But like, it's all recorded, right? There's hours and hours of footage on demand.
Yep. You've also played some games on Fumble, which is a free resource. You can always download the replays for that. And if you play tabletop, I'm sure you will bump into you at some point if you live somewhere in the UK. So, is there anything else you want to add?
I mean, we have talked for a while, haven't we? I could talk all day about the nuances of dealing with different positions and how to deal with different options, because, you know, at the end of the day, a lot of Goblins, they're one of those teams where it can always go wrong and it can almost always go right. It's pretty rare that you're totally out of it. There are some crazy ideas that come out, but a lot of playing Goblins well comes down to understanding the state of the game over time, and when you have to like make certain changes, and when pushes, and when the time is like, is the better option here, I roll 17 dodges, and if they all work, cool, or do I play safe and just stay back? Like, you know, and you only get that from playing them, right? Just, you know,
I'm sure you would.
You can't really tell somebody that kind of information, can you? Although I'll happily talk to anyone about it.
Good. Well, there we go. So I don't need to play Goblins because Yud will. And I think that's a great place to end the video. Thank you very much indeed, Yud, for giving me several hours of your time, in fact, in making this guide. And if you've enjoyed the content, please leave a like and subscribe. And you'll see us either on my channel or Yud's in the near future. Thank you very much.